Hey, shalom, shalom.
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 Ha'ira Tawab La'atham, which is good evening unto you all. Anachna wa ha'ibar sha'ala, with the Hebrew Israelites coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, to preach to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners. Nachamatam, Kaya, Hamalakwa Tashamayim, Kwarab, repent ye for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. First and foremost, before we get started, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rocha, Kodash. While double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us truth and rule well. And much respect to you bros out there pushing this truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom.
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 All right, so another edition of the 12 tribes, and we're going into Banyamyan, which is Benjamin. I'm going to start at Genesis, the 49th chapter and the 27th verse.
Khan, this is Genesis 49 and verse 27. It says, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil.
And it says Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. When you look at Benjamin, they're really known, for how they cry out, and symbolically that represents, that music. You would see guys like, which bros can give examples as well, but like Bob Marley, he got a son. I can't remember his name. I think it's Damian Marley or something like
He
that.
got a bunch of them. They
Right.
all Damien,
Yeah.
Stephen,
hmm
uh, the one from Lauren Hill. He got a bunch of sons, but they all, amongst all reggae music, you hear a lot of them speak about how we're the tribes of Israel, and they
hmm
always chanting down Babylon, man. Because if I could add to
Right.
that, because how it says Benjamin is a ravening wolf. Wolves, when you look at, in the animal world, wolves howl before tearing their prey to pieces. And like you may mention, Benjamin does that howling through the music because as
hmm
Yahweh Shemal Shah is about to bring the judgment to Babylon, Benjamin be prophesying about the destruction of Babylon, man. So that shows you they got to be part of the tribes, all right? Because like I said, you hear them speak about Babylon. Somebody they'll tell you that you're of the 12 tribes of Israel. You know, they just they show you the spirit bear witness. Y'all got it.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
Oh, I got a
Khan.
couple precepts to add to that too, but go ahead, Yeshai.
hmm
A lot. I just wanted to back you up on your point, because when you go into that word raven or just rave, when you look it up in a dictionary, it says to talk wildly or incoherently, as if one were delirious or insane. It says to speak or write about something, about someone or something with great enthusiasm or admiration. It says an extremely enthusiastic recommendation or appraisal, a lively party or gathering involving dancing and drinking. But pretty much, the point being is right here to talk wildly or incoherently, as if one were delirious or insane. And you can see Jake, Benjamin in their songs, the way they talk, and the music that they bring out, really like you mentioned, like a wolf, that raves before they go in for the kill or whatever. That's what
Mm-hmm.
you see. That's what you see. Benjamin doing. They're over here bringing out the music, chanting down Babylon. Like you mentioned, you mentioned Bob Marley, right?
hmm
You have what's it called? What's his name? Desmond Decker. You had
Mm-hmm.
what's his name? Linval Thompson. You had Junior Delgado. You had
Yep.
what's his name? That group Boney M that had Rivers of Babylon. So you have so
That's
many
a
groups,
bunch.
that are Benjaminites that pretty much brought out, Babylon, Israelites, all these pretty much all
Mm-hmm.
these topics.
Yeah, like Baron Levinson, Bunny Walker, just naming a few more, but just showing like, bro, the spirit is showing you that they are connected to the book because what other people in the world primarily make songs about Babylon, and you can tell when you listen to them when they speaking about Babylon, you can tell it's talking about America, man. All right,
hmm
because Jake,
Hmm.
the so-called Jamaicans, they have their fair issue with Esau too, man. All right. But I got a few precepts. Can somebody grab Sirach 28, 17, and 18? And then Second Thessalonians 2, verses 7 and 8. I'm gonna read this right here. Just going off of how it says that Benjamin is a ravening wolf. All right, we're talking about the Terran. So this is Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 29. Is not my word like a fire, say of the Lord, and like a hammer that breaketh the rock in pieces? Because the same way that Benjamin sings about bringing Babylon's downfall in the spirit, that's what we're doing, man. We're howling, we're
Hmm.
chanting down Babylon. by bringing the words of Yahweh Shem Shah, and it's breaking down this place, man. So this word is likened to a hammer, and it's breaking down Babylon as we're seeing, through the spirit. Since the Israelites have came on the scene, Babylon has been broken down, bit by bit, year after year, as the spirit of the Lord intensifies, man.
Mm-hmm. So you said you wanted Sirach 28 and 18?
Start at 17.
Khan. This is Sirach 28 and verse 17. It says, "The stroke of the whip maketh marks in the flesh, but the stroke of the tongue breaketh the bones.
Mm-hmm.
Many have fallen by the edge of the sword, but not so many as have fallen by the tongue."
Right. And the scriptures talk about how, this word is like a two-edged sword, Hebrews 4:12. And through, the stroke of the tongue, through us coming out here and prophesying, look how we're destroying Esau, man. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritually, mentally. Hey, these devils are getting broke down by this word, man, because they know what we're saying is true. And they know that, prophecy is spelling out their downfall, and we're literally witnessing it, man.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other
other one?
scripture?
2 Thessalonians 2:7-8.
Okay, I get it. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and we'll get verse 7. It says, "For the mystery of iniquity doeth already work."
Right, because as we talk about the mystery of iniquity being Esau, Edom, all right, who was the son of perdition, as it's gonna say, but at the end of the day, Babylon also is a part of that mystery that has been brought out, because Benjamin, a lot of times you'll hear they'll talk about mystery Babylon, man, as well, but we're revealing who the mystery of iniquity is, which is the Edomites, man. During the time when this was written, all right, they didn't know that was talking about the Romans, all right, but we know that those are Edomites as well. So he has been found out. Go ahead.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 7 and latter, it says, "Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way."
Right. So we know that the Lord is allowing this devil to pretty much bring all this havoc and destruction in the earth because it's prophecy's sake. All right, and the Lord is allowing him to fill up his cup because as we know, I'm trying to think how it was. Yeshaya, you remember the scripture where it talks about how the Lord had to let the Amorites pretty much fill up their measure before he took them down. I forget exactly. But that's the same thing that we're seeing taking place with Esau, Edom, man. The Lord has to allow their measure to do what it was accomplished to do before he, takes action because he's bound by his word. Seems like the iniquity of the Amorites is yet fulfilled or something like that.
Genesis 15 and 16.
Read it for me real quick.
God says, "But in the fourth," this is Genesis 15 and 16, "but in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full."
Yeah. So the same way back then, all right, nothing could be done to the Amorites until Yahweh Shem Shah had to have their purpose fulfilled. And then he took them down. But it's the same thing we see with this devil Esau Edom, man. All right. Hey, the Lord has to let things play out before he makes a move because it's things that he has to have this devil do, such as bring in this RFID chip, bring in the New World Order, and start World War III. All these things accumulate until the coming of Yahweh Shai. So the Lord is allowing this wickedness to increase until that time happens, man. Okay, This is why I say you make the songs. You hear Jake, Benjamin, all Jake when they make their music is like how long. Like we say, when we sing this song, we ask the Lord, how long? All right. Only the Lord knows.
Right.
We know that we feel in the spirit that's coming to an end very soon. Y'all got it.
2 Thessalonians.
Salakia.
You want me to finish to verse 8?
Oh, you try to make a point first, and then you got it.
No, I was going to add to the point. The scriptures talk about until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So pretty much you got to let that time period go forth because the Most High has a set measure that needs to be taking place for prophecy's sake, for His word's sake.
Right, and we know that through the vision in Daniel with the statue. All right, we know that we're in the toes, man. That the was it the iron mixed with the clay? All right, and we're waiting for that millstone that was carved out to come and smash the the statue to pieces, which is Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, you got it.
2 Thessalonians 2 and 8. "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming.
Right. And so that's what we're doing through the spirit. All right. Because the Lord is using the prophets, which are the spirit of his mouth, because we are the Lord's mouthpiece, and we're consuming this devil in his kingdom through us prophesying against it, man. So as we're seeing with Benjamin and their music, they're doing that, man. All right. But we're doing it on an even higher vibration through preaching this word.
That's right. And I wanted to add to your point too, because there's a spirit, because I had this on deck as well. Because when you go back to Genesis 49 and 27 into the word raven, right? The Hebrew word there is quarap.
Should be Tarap.
Oh, Salakia, tarap. But pretty much it says to tear, to rend, to pluck, to tear, to be torn in pieces. And when you brought out 2 Thessalonians, the second chapter in the 7th and the 8th verse, it says, "And then the wicked shall be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth." And like you mentioned, the spirit of the mouth, spirit of his mouth, are mainly the prophets. But Benjamin is really doing that. He was doing that ahead of time through his music. Pretty much tearing at Babylon, tearing at America. You know what I'm saying? By exposing them, bringing out this word. Chanting down Babylon. And when you go into the whole thing, I looked this up before, but the reason why they mention Babylon a lot is because they know that this current system is oppressive, and they always reverted back to the Babylonians. But that's a spirit at the end of the day, because the Most High put it in their spirit to refer to this time period as being Babylon. So again, it's all the spirit at the end of the day. But there was another precept I wanted to get, just to add to your point, is Jeremiah 5 and 14. Just adding to that, it says, "Wherefore thus saith Yahweh, power of hosts, because ye speak this word, behold, I will make my words in thy mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them." Now, of course, this is talking about our people as well, but it's also speaking about the heathen and Esau. The prophecy, these words is pretty much is tearing them apart, man. It's devouring them, as as a wolf devours this prey. A Benjamin is through his music, his speech, is devouring the enemy, the prey, which is ultimately Esau, pursuant to Jeremiah 5 and 14. I mean, not 5 and 14, Salakia, Zephaniah 3 and 8. Let me get that real quick. Zephaniah 3 and 8, because ultimately Esau is the prey.
Yep.
But it says, "Therefore wait ye upon me, said Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey." Right? The prey being Esau, Edom, the nations. "For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." Right? So this is all accumulating to the day of the Lord, essentially.
Fine. So the Lord uses his people as the conduit to pretty much bring that warning. Because I want to add this last part, is dealing with the association with the wolf. This is from this article on the breakdown of Benjamin. This is from medium.com. But it says, "This is why Benjamin was associated with the wolf, an animal known for its boldness and fierceness in battle, which they showed throughout history. The Apostle Paul, who wrote a large portion of the New Testament, also confesses to be of the tribe of Benjamin. Paul then saw the apostle sent to preach to the Gentiles was relentless in arresting the early Hebrew Christians before the Most High rebuked him, and after Paul came to accept Yahushua, he continued in his boldness, being relentless, and his love for others. This is what he learned from studying Yahushua's teaching, eventually becoming the strongest contributing author to the canonized New Testament doctrine. Moses wrote about the tribe of Benjamin, saying, and quotes Deuteronomy 33 and 12, and of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell with him in safety, or dwell in him, shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders." So just further adding to that point of why the Lord likened the tribe of Benjamin to a wolf.
Khan. Yep.
And also
And
one more thing, because hey, Benjamin is bold too. When you
Mhm.
talk to Benjamites, man, they're very bold with their approach or how they talk to you, man. So it's another way to
Mhm.
show you that it's talking about them. But you gotta slack you out.
No, you good. No, I was just saying, because the Apostle Paul, he was very fiery with his words. You
Exactly.
know, he had pretty much the most letters in the Bible. You know, and just the way he went about it. The Romans pretty much wanted to get him, but they couldn't because he was a Roman citizen. But I mean, if he wasn't a Roman citizen, he would have been caught up a long time ago. But but it was all the Spirit anyway. The Most High was protecting him. But there was one precept I wanted to get real quick, just to further add to this point. Jeremiah 30 and verse 16, it says, "Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey." So that's essentially what's happening right now. That transition is happening, you know, and just going back right to Genesis 49:27, it says, "Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil." Well, that time is coming, right? Where right now that process of him raving as a wolf is happening. The chanting down in Babylon. Like you mentioned, when a wolf howls, he howls before he goes in for the kill. Well, we're about to
Mhm.
go in for that kill through our Lord Yahushua. He's going to go in for that kill, and that spoil is going to be divided amongst all Israel, which is you heathens. But your brothers got it.
Kai, could you get Deuteronomy 33 and verse 12?
Con Deuteronomy 33, verse 12. It says, "And of Benjamin he said, the beloved of Yahweh shall dwell in safety by him, and Yahweh shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders."
Right, going into that, that special relationship that Benjamin has, with the Lord. Going into his name, son of the right. Bon is son, Yam Yan is right, which is the object, the right hand. Because essentially Benjamin in the spirit is the son of the right hand. And also, where it says, and of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall be between his shoulders. If we was to look at the ancient map of where Benjamin resided, Benjamin essentially resided in the middle of all of the 11 tribes. Even
Mm-hmm.
over here today, if we look at the map right now, up in the U.S., you got all the tribes are in the U.S. You see, but a few hundred years ago, you had Gad and Reuben up in the U.S., Canada, and stuff like that. You had Benjamin in what's known as Jamaica. Or you got Haiti, and you got Haiti, and you also got the Dominican Republic, and then you got Issachar in Mexico, and then you had the rest of the tribes down, scattered, across the respective areas, but predominantly, you had Naphtali, Asher, all of them was down in South America, but going back into Benjamin, so-called Jamaicans, they are like directly in the middle of this side of the hemisphere, just like right here. You got Manasseh at the top to the left, you got Gad off to the right, and right under Gad, you got Reuben, and that's how it was. That's how it was symbolically and predominantly in so-called United States, because Gad had most of Canada, or Gad had Canada, Gad had so-called United States. Reuben pretty much was in Florida and Georgia, But then it says Ephraim, Dan, Judah at the south, and then Benjamin is right directly in the middle. Essentially illustrating that that special relationship being covered, by the rest of the tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you also have
Trying,
a map? You go ahead.
no, yeah, I was trying to pull up that map. Hold on, I have it right here.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me see
So
if I
right
can
here.
zoom in. You can kind of see it, I guess. Right here is Jamaica.
Yeah. So right smack dab in the middle, you got Jamaica, but then to the right you got the Dominican Republic, you got
Mm-hmm.
Haiti. Right there you got Cuba, that's Manasseh. You got Asher, Naphtali is down there as well. You
Oh
got
shit,
Issachar.
Slovakia.
You good.
There you go.
You got Issachar off to the left, and then up above, you would have Gad and Reuben. But essentially Jamaica is still surrounded, in that area. And I actually wanted to touch on that. If you had that article, if bros didn't have any points.
Got it.
I got that.
Yeah.
This is from the it's from embassyofjamaica.org. It says history of Jamaica. You want me to just start reading?
Yeah, you read from the top and then go down to where it says something about the springs. Is that in there?
I think so.
Yeah. Just read down to the ladder of the first Jamaicans.
It says, this is the introduction. It says the history of Jamaica over the past 500 years has been marked, by the courage of the Jamaican people in their triumphant struggle for freedom and justice, and by their unrelenting resistance and determination in the face of adversity and discrimination. Modern Jamaica is built on a historical legacy of genocide perpetrated against the island's indigenous peoples, on the experience of over 300 years of slavery and oppression suffered by the Jamaicans of African origin, and on the interplay between Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East in the building of a proud, free, and progressive nation in the heart of the Caribbean.
In the heart of the Caribbean, when you talk about the heart, it's talking about the center. So the center, pretty much that illustrates Deuteronomy 33:12. That how they're strategically, placed upon the map, just like how it was in the ancient world.
It says the first Jamaicans. The first Jamaicans were the Taino Indians who settled in Jamaica around 600 AD.
Pretty much when you go into Taino, all right, that's a broken Hebrew word for Tawab Ain, which is good people.
It says they were Stone Age people who had migrated to Jamaica from the northern coast of South America.
And that's bullshit.
Right.
Downplay.
Right. Fucking demeaning terms.
Right. Fucking Stone Age people, man. We already had shit going on before Esau even came over here. So, like you said, that's just demeaning.
It says, after living continuously. Oh yeah, and just for further note, Tainos goes into pretty much Manasseh, Ephraim, what other tribe? Simeon.
So pretty much, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe pretty much they was dwelling on those lands because they also had what's known as Haiti, and then also the Dominican Republic, because that land was known as Hispaniola. But pretty much those tribes was dwelling in those lands at those specific times.
Right. But it says, or before Benjamin came in. But it says, after living continuously in Jamaica for almost 900 years, the Tainos were wiped out within 50 years of the Spanish conquest in 1494. It says, due to exploitation by the Spanish settlers, starvation, and a lack of resistance to European diseases, many Tainos fiercely resisted the Spanish occupation of their land, and some even committed suicide rather than serve as slaves. Man.
They say they are fighters, man. I had a extra this article just kind of go back on that too, because what as it says during that the Spanish, when the settlers that came over here and pretty much conquered them, that just shows you that Benjamin was fighting them the whole way out, man.
Right.
So in this section it said in Jamaica the enslaved Maroons, but that's one of the terms that the Spaniards were calling Benjamin during this time. The enslaved Maroons fought fiercely just as their ancient ancestors in Israel did, firmly believing in liberty or death. Some Spaniards even called them Cimarrones, which means wild or untamed. There were 16 slave revolts between 1655 and 1813. By the 1820s, plantations were losing some 2,500 Maroons per year as they continued to fight off their oppressors and run away into the mountains. In 1831, the largest slave uprising was initiated in northern Jamaica, with 20,000 Maroons attacking 200 plantations and taking over large pockets of land. This rebellion lasted only 10 days, but took British troops all of January of 1832 to gain back control, which they eventually did. Plantations owners were terrified of more uprisings after this, and Parliament was soon in talks of ways to end slavery. So Benjamin is a fighter, man. Like I said, that goes back to that boldness that we read about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
See, and one thing I wanted to make a point of is that the same attitude Judah had. Judah had the same attitude. Pretty much all the tribes were warriors because Judah had the same attitude when they were coming over here through the ships. They would die. They'd rather die, what I'm saying, than to live as a slave. And the same thing with Issachar. Issachar has a saying in Spanish. It says it goes es mejor morir de pie que vivir de rodillas. Pretty much means, translating, it says it's better for me to die on my feet than to live on my knees.
Yeah.
That's Jake. Yeah, that's Jake, man. So that just shows you, hey, Jake had that same mindset, man. They had that same warrior mindset. To just like, I'd rather die than to be a slave.
Hey, let's add this to that too. It says, although Benjamin was the smallest tribe of Israel, they were probably the fiercest. Mordecai and Esther were both Benjamites and were used by the Most High to deliver the Hebrews while in captivity in Babylon, according to ancient Jewish texts. Esther, this is where the origins of Purim come. They were badly outnumbered but held their ground and stood against the rest of Israel in civil war, slaughtering 40,000 Israelites before the Most High allowed them to be defeated the third day, which is excerpt from Judges, the 20th chapter. It should be noted that at the end of the war, the Israelites had burned down the Benjamite city, which is how Benjamites recognized they had been defeated. This may be where the name. Let's go into something else, but yeah, that was the main point I wanted to add to that.
Con. Want me to continue reading that? Con, it says the Arawak language spoken by the Taínos survives in many words such as hammock, hurricane, tobacco, barbecue, and canoe. The word Jamaica actually derives from the Arawak word Haimaka, meaning land of wood and water.
So when we touch, I'm gonna touch on that part right there too. But this is the etymology of the word Jamaica. It says the island of Jamaica's name originates from the Arawak word Zamaica, which means land of wood and water or land of springs. And more specifically, it will go into the land of springs. But it says this name.
I can add to you real quick because it said that because what's Jamaica known for? They're known for their beaches, which Esau took over. So the natives can't even go on that beach because Esau has privatized it. We'll just add to that.
It says this name was given by the indigenous Taino people who inhabited the island before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. The current name is Jamaica, is a direct translation of Jamaica, reflecting the island's lush natural landscape. Now it says the land of springs, but it says, yes, Jamaica is known for its abundance of springs, particularly mineral springs, which are a popular tourist attraction due to their unique features and potential therapeutic benefits. It says these springs, often situated in limestone areas, are known for their clear blue water and mineral composition, in which it said that it was a Arawak word, which it essentially goes, it's broken Hebrew because, all right, it's no X's. X was pretty much made up. The two main letters in that will be the Y and the M. So it's referring to the springs. And just to prove that, could we get that that website, bro, with the Hebrew?
Con.
And it says it has a relation to this word right here, both Yam and Yamam, but it says object sea, spring, day. It says the sea or other large body of water is a place of storms and heavy surf. The parent root is closely related to Ham. The pictograph Ya is a picture of the hand representing work, is a picture of water. Combined, these mean working water. So Baba Shah, could you scroll now? Right there, it says Yamam, where it says definition. It says a spring of water in the wilderness. So Yamam and Yam, they have a relation too, where it says Jamaica or Jamaica. That J will be a Y, all right, and then it has the AM, and that pretty much shows the relation to that water. It's broken Hebrew, So Bros had a point.
Con. I have something to say because in Spanish, the hibiscus plant, we in Spanish we call it Jamaica. In Spanish we call it Jamaica, and pretty much it's just what it is: wood and water. We'll make a drink out of it, and I'm pretty sure brothers have, when y'all go to a Mexican restaurant, they'll offer or Chata, Jamaica, and some other waters, and that's pretty much the hibiscus water.
Okay. Could you also go to the Ma as well?
Oh yeah, Khan.
Because I want to touch on the name, but it says Man. It says when a seed is watered, the plant comes out of it growing tall and firm. The pictograph Ma is a picture of water. The Na is a picture of a seed. Combined, these mean water and seed. Can you scroll down, Babu Shah, to where it says Yaman?
Khan. Let's see. Right here.
Right there. It says Yaman. So Man is water the seed. And generally, people are generally right-handed. So the right hand is the hand that will be used to water the seed. That's why it says the right hand is the strong hand. The Hebrews oriented direction according to the rising sun. Therefore, the south is to the right. And so that's talking about the actual direction. But when you place it upon an object, it will be Yam Yan. So sun of the right. An actual object. So it says Yam Yan, the hand of the right side of a person, also a direction as in to the right. So again, essentially applying it to Benjamin. So I'm gonna get this precept real fast. This is Psalms chapter 80, and we'll get verse 17. And which this specifically goes into, or it's twofold. First and foremost, is going to Yahweh Shai, you see, but also it can be applied to Benjamin. But it says Psalms 80 and 17, let thy hand be upon the man of thy right hand, Benjamin, son of the right hand, upon the son of man whom thou madest strong for thyself. And essentially, that's talking about Yahweh Shai. You see, and Benjamin is on that right hand side. He has that special relationship with the Lord. From there, could we get Judges chapter 3 and verse 15? Because I want to touch on a point that bros have made, pretty much the fierceness and how Benjamin is warriors. They was essentially known, for being left-handed warriors. They had that strategic advantage.
Mm-hmm. Let me start at 17. Khan. This is Judges 3 and 17. It says, and he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man. And when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bear the present. But he himself turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king. Who said, keep silence. And all that stood by him went out from him. And Ehud came unto him, but he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from the Most High unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. And Ehud put forth his left hand and took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly.
Right. And essentially, that gives a sort of a strategic advantage, because being that, a lot of people are right-handed, Benjamin had, some elite warriors that they would draw from their right-hand side. So generally, like in different, combat sports and stuff like that, if someone's a southpaw, they have a strategic advantage. But pretty much just going into this, Benjamin was known for, their warlike mentality and their tactics, so that essentially played into their tactics because he drew from the right-hand side,
It kind of made it like ironic, his name.
Right, because then at the same time too, that's the iteration, because even though that Benjamin had elite warriors that was left-handed, they still the sons of the right-hand side, because back in the ancient world, if someone was left-handed, it had that was kind of like taboo, for lack of better words, because most people was right-handed, with that ideology of left hand, that would give again the people that type of that stigma, you see. But it's being a reiteration in the spirit, because Ban Yam Yan is a son of the right,
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, and I remember that too from school. They used to tell us to write with our right hand.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because they said people that was left hand was from the devil, which makes sense because Esau's the left hand, so
Right.
That's true. Yep. Hey, may I get a precept real quick?
Oh, you got it, bro.
This is Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 2. It says, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart is at his left.
Mm-hmm.
So just reiterating that point, the right hand represents righteousness, right? That left represents foolishness, wickedness, evil, right?
Right.
Just adding to your point.
Kyle, could you get Judges 20, 14 to 17.
Con. Judges 20, 14. It says, "But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities of Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men that drew sword, beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men." It says, "Among this people there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling stones at a hair breadth and not miss."
Right. So just to paint a picture of that, they had it was a like in football they'll say, aim small, miss small. So if you aimed at a quarter, you would hit like that close. So it said a hair breadth, so that's they would miss by a hair, so they was very accurate, with that left hand. So going into, that their warlike tactics, because being that Benjamin was fierce, they had warriors.
Had that precision.
Mm-hmm. You keep
It
going
said,
to 17, Baba Shah.
Verse 17, it says, "And the men of Israel beside Benjamin were numbered 400,000 men that drew sword. All these were men of war."
Right, just proving the point, that Benjamin, had warriors. So from that, I had, could we get Joshua chapter 18 and start at verse 11? That's pretty much all I had. Bros ain't had nothing else.
This is Joshua 18 and verse 11. It says, "And the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the coast of their lot came forth between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph."
Mm-hmm.
It says, "And their border on the north side was from Jordan, and the border went up to the side of Jericho on the north side, and went up through the mountains westward, and the goings out thereof were at the wilderness of Bethaven."
That pretty much illustrates, where the Lord, placed Benjamin, because he was the youngest. He also had elite warriors that was left-handed, you see, and a couple different, different attributes, with him, you see, but he's still the son of the right-hand side, pursuant to, again, Psalms 80 and verse 17, and just going into, his name,
Mm-hmm. Want me to continue, or was that it?
That was pretty much it. Did bros have any other articles or anything?
I had this. When you was talking about, Benjamin with that fierceness, I was trying to go through Google and see, what other warriors is mentioned from the tribe of Benjamin. I thought this from the AI overview was interesting, though. It says the tribe of Benjamin in the Hebrew Bible is known for its skilled warriors, particularly with the proficiency with slings and arrows, which is going off of what you said.
Mm-hmm.
They were also noted for being ambidextrous, meaning they could use both hands with equal skill. Some notable warriors from Benjamin include Ehud, a judge known for being left-handed, and the unknown elite corps of slingers. So just, add to what I was saying.
Kind of, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of Benjamites, are naturally left-handed as well.
Mm-hmm. You want me to read a little bit more into this article?
Oh yeah. You go ahead.
So going back to this article, continuing off where I left off, I think I read this paragraph. So this paragraph right here, it says, Jamaica's first town was built by the Spanish in Saint Anne's Bay, and was called Sevilla Nueva. It says in 1538, the Spanish moved the capital of Jamaica to Spanish Town. Jamaica was, however, never heavily populated by the Spanish, for they found no gold on the island. Instead, plantations were established to supply food for the Spanish ships that sailed between Europe and the Americas. So pretty much, it was a plantation. That's all it was.
All right, and that's pursuant to a couple documentaries and then just history. A lot of times Jamaica, and then you had Nassau. I believe Nassau is in Jamaica as well, right?
Not sure.
Yeah, well, you got places like Nassau and stuff like that. A lot of piracy and stuff like that was going on in that specific type of area. I know that I think they had tobacco and like sugarcane and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. like I said, it had plantations as well. And I remember listening to Apostle Gabar, talk about that because he's a Benjamite too, from the islands, and he mentions how the plantations, working in the plantation is very, very laborious work. Like people
Mm-hmm.
die from doing these laborious works.
Yeah, a lot of Esau when they was coming up with the whole IQ thing. Well, they would experiment on a lot of the Benjamites over there. After, they would work them to death, and
Mm-hmm.
then they would beat them. And then when they would want to do like the experiment, just pretty much see if how their brain work. That's why a lot of that IQ shit comes from. When they said black people are naturally dumber than white people because when you look at their skull, they got dents in it. That's why they was using that. But
Mm-hmm.
you said Nassau. Nassau is the Bahamas. So I don't know
Con,
if that constitutes being Benjamin.
yeah, I believe they still Benjamin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Benjamin is was it Trinidad, the
Mm-hmm.
West Indies, Jamaica, the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because it said the
Con.
Caribbean, so I'm pretty sure that's Benjamin.
Yeah, con. But continuing on, it says Spain remained in control of Jamaica for more than 150 years, and the legacy of this period can still be seen in the historic buildings of Spanish Town. And that's the reason why I believe um, that one singer, Junior Delgado, he has a Spanish last name, Delgado. That's a Spanish name.
Mm-hmm.
But it says, where did I leave off? It says, legacy of this period can still be seen in the historic buildings of Spanish Town and in the many Spanish names assigned to Jamaican rivers, mountains, and towns. It says in 1655, British naval forces captured Jamaica from the Spanish, and the British went on to retain control of Jamaica for over 300 years. So it's just going into some of the history of Jamaica. But it says the British took advantage of Jamaica's strategic location in the center of the Caribbean to challenge the Spanish dominance of the region and to disrupt their lucrative trade in gold and silver. While many of the first English settlers in Jamaica were landowners, others were pirates who operated with the consent of the British. Buccaneers like Sir Henry Morgan reigned with merchants and adventurers to attack the Spanish galleons that carried gold and silver from Central and South America to Spain.
Right, and
Isn't that?
that essentially again illustrates the point. Excuse me,
Mm-hmm,
illustrates the point. You know how the Lord strategically put Benjamin right there, because and
mm-hmm,
that's essentially what Esau be doing too. He'd take the blessing of Jake, and use it for his advantage. I.e., where they got that little across from where we camp at. They got that little monument type of stone thing. Gad had a trade route from down here all the way up to New York, and Esau turned that into like major a major highway, off Tryon Street.
All right.
mm-hmm,
I can speak on what y'all going into how the slavery that was brutal on Benjamin. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and that shall come down very low. Because Esau, ultimately they raped and pillaged them to where now they don't even have control over their own land. Like I made mention earlier, because Jamaica is a heavy popular tourist attraction. Those Jamaicans aren't even allowed on their own beaches, man. Because those beaches are part of Esau's attraction to bring people to that island. So the people that live there, they're not even allowed to step foot over there, man. That's just one of the ways that Esau has put, he has made himself up high because a lot of them Jamaicans live poorly, man. You look at their neighborhoods, man. It looks wicked as hell. I mean, not wicked as hell. It looks poor as hell, man.
mm-hmm. Right. That's pretty much what they do. Pretty much push Jake into these like hoods, type of like villas, type of shit, to where they're just like living like shanties, shack towns.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much took over the sugar cane, and all that over there as well. So, Esau pretty much has enslaved them in their own country, like everywhere
Mm-hmm.
else.
Continuing on, it says their headquarters at Port Royal soon became rich with stolen Spanish gold and was known in the 17th century as the wickedest city in the world. It
Because
says,
Esau was down there.
Right.
Yeah. The border of wickedness.
I'm about to say
Mhm.
everywhere you go.
Yep. It says Port Royal was almost completely destroyed in 1692 by a devastating earthquake and further damaged by a series of hurricanes over the next 30 years. That was the Lord. But it says by then England and Spain had signed a peace treaty and the need for the buccaneers had vanished. Jamaica became more involved in trade and the exportation of sugar, cocoa, and other agricultural products. The
Damn, that's what
decline
made
of
me think about that because fucking Esau State make a mockery of the fact that the football team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's a slap in the face to Jake, man.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, gone. It says the decline of the Buccaneers, coupled with the destruction of Port Royal by earthquake, led to the rise of the nearby fishing village of Kingston, which offered a natural harbor on the more sheltered southern side of the island. Kingston eventually became Jamaica's capital in 1872. So it says, continuing on, the Maroons. It says during the upheaval caused by the transition from Spanish to English rule in 1655, many of the West African slaves formerly owned by the Spanish escaped into Jamaica's hilly interior and pioneered the resistance to slavery that would continue in Jamaica for most of the ensuing 200 years. Yeah, so like you mentioned, like your brothers mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much Benjamin was very warrior like or warlike. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? They're very resilient.
Yeah, the fact that they were, able to cause a civil war amongst their own people, you don't think they had to put that fight up against Esau, man?
Mm-hmm.
And the Most High, got Benjamin to. Hey, I remember that one part of the scripture where it talks about how when Benjamin had went off and they almost got eradicated, the angel was going through, killing all Benjamites, and he had to stop, and they had to go and grab up some women to repopulate, man.
Mm-hmm. Khan. Khan. It says these escaped slaves developed their own separate culture based on their West African roots, known as the Maroons. The British were never able to recapture or subdue them. Damn, it sounds like Reuben.
Mm-hmm.
It says,
Right.
and they were granted political. Oh, Salaka, you gonna say something? Mark?
Lie. I'll just agree.
Okay, Khan. It says, and they were granted political autonomy in 1739. So they had to make a deal with Jake or Benjamin. But it says their descendants and culture still exist today in modern Jamaica, a testament to their skill and tenacity.
God. If I could go into a little bit of examples where it talks about how when they separated, when they pretty much fled from Esau, how they developed their own culture based on their West African roots. That's really them going back into the they're trying to go back to the Hebrew, like
Mm,
their ancient customs, man. And I
Mhm.
had typed in Google the Maroons Hebrew similarities, and it says the term Maroons refers to free, self-governing communities of formerly enslaved people, often with African ancestry, which they keep throwing that African out, but we know that they weren't Africans for real. It
right.
says who established independent settlements in America, especially in densely forested areas. These communities have a rich history and culture, and some research suggests potential similarities between their practices and certain Hebrew traditions, particularly in relation to mourning and language. I'll just go into a couple things. It says mourning practices in Akun Maroon communities in Suriname, a practice called Broco Diaz, break the days, involves all night parties as a way of mourning the deceased. Well, I'm not going to use that one, Salakia. It says Jewish Shiva. This this shares some similarities with Jewish mourning rituals, particularly the Shiva period when community members gathered to support the bereaved family and abstain from work for a specified time. They had that mourning period, but I believe they also kept the Sabbath too. And then
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the language, it says linguist linguistic Brian Stubbs has explored the possibility of linguistic connections between some Mesoamerican language families and Semitic languages, including Hebrew. His research suggests that some pairs found in Mesoamerican languages like Utu Aztecan and Semitic languages share similar shift and morphological correspondence. So they had a form of broken Hebrew too, So just add that in
Mm.
there.
No, yeah, Khan. Pretty much Benjamin was a maverick.
Mm-hmm.
You pretty much couldn't trap him.
And it makes sense of what was read because when you hear the Benjamites talk about the Most High, they call him Jah, which
Mm.
Jah is just well, not say Americanized, but a New Age way of how they say Yah. Some of them may say Yah, but in a way they know that the name they don't call him no Jesus or no God. They call him Yah, which is just
Mhm.
he. So they're closer than most niggas when it comes to knowing the name.
Mm-hmm. No, it all makes sense why they relate a lot to the Babylonian captivity.
Mm-hmm.
They were going back to their roots. But a lot of that was, like I said, washed away through the years and indoctrination. But the fact that they still kept some of those roots and some of that knowledge, what I'm saying, and added it to their music just further adds to prophecy.
Just to throw a scripture in there so we ain't just talking. This is
Uh,
Romans 8:16. The spirit itself bears witness with our spirit that we're the children of the Most High. And another precept, just to add to that, Benjamin, they like I said, they did a lot of research to figure out where their roots go back to. So Job 8:8, for inquire, I pray thee of the former age and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers. So a lot of Benjamites know that they are they come from the tribe of Benjamin, So that's why I said they were able to go back to their roots. And even though they go off, they
mm-hmm.
still, some of them still know the truth. They know that they're Israelites still, man.
Mm-hmm.
But y'all got it.
I think that's it. Unless you want me to read more, Yawam, or skip down to that one part you said, Jamaican identity.
Yeah, we read that.
Khan. So skipping down to where it says Jamaican identity, it says the legacy of Africa lives on in Jamaica in countless ways. It is most evident in the ethnic composition of the Jamaican people in the Jamaican language called Patois, whose grammar and pronunciation are heavily influenced by the Twi language spoken in West Africa.
Which it says, and pronunciation are heavily influenced by the Twi language spoken in West Africa, which pretty much what Esau do is he divides and essentially makes it to where it's like, okay, well, these different cultures have nothing to do with each other. But really, when you look at, a lot of words in Spanish, or you look at a lot of words in Tagalog, which is what they speak in the Philippines. A lot of these have Hebrew relation. That's because it's pretty much broken Hebrew.
Mm-hmm. It
And it's
says,
we don't and again to reiterate, we lived in West Africa, but that's not where we're from.
right.
I get that real quick because, like I said, a lot of Benjamin will say that. You look at different guys like Sizzler, what's that, Bob's Cartel, and it's another guy I can't think of his name right now, but they'll tell you Bob Marley. They'll tell you that Mother Africa. They reference that a lot, but like you said, we're not actually from Africa. We're from Jerusalem, man. All right. This is just to prove that point. Galatians 4:26. For Jerusalem, which is above us, is free. For Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. So we're not Africans. Our history goes beyond Africa. All right. Now, like the brother said, we did dwell in Africa for a good bit because after 70 AD, when you read books like Babylon Babylon to Timbuktu, it tells you we fled into the western and northern parts of Africa to flee Roman persecution. But we're not
Right.
African, man.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. It wasn't even. You about to say something, bro?
I would say the scripture talks about how the Lord put a difference between the Israelites and the Egyptians. You don't have the same spirit.
Kind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna grab that.
Mm-hmm.
Exodus chapter 11 and verse 7. It says, "But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or a beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doeth put a difference between the Egyptians and Yashar Allah.
Yeah.
Essentially going into where you go, bro?
No, I'm gonna say because you can tell the difference. See, but when you hear a lot of Benjamites, speak, they speak about Nigeria and Ghana. Now, in those different countries, which are still they're still Israelites. They're still over there because one of the show you the notable tribes that Benjamin, the verify to tell you they're from Africa. You have the Ashanti, which are been proven to be Israelites, man. Which I can say that real quick. It says many of the Maroons were taken from the read it again. Many of the Maroons were taken from the Ashanti region of West Africa, former Gold Coast region located in modern Ghana. The Ashanti, as well as many other tribal West African nations, Grebo in Liberia, Yoruba and Igbo of Nigeria, Akan of Ghana, etc., still hold to many ancient Hebrew customs. The name Ashanti has Hebrew origins. The T at the end meaning race of people, and Ashan meaning smoke. Joseph Williams noted and documented the comparison and similarities between the Ashanti and Hebrew customs. And just give some references. I'll just read through this real quick. It says, thus far, we have shown certain cultural elements common to the Ashanti and ancient Hebrews, such as the occult religious dances, use of Amen or Amun, vow value, patriarchal system, parallel symbolism of authority in stool and chair, endogamy, cross cousin marriages, familiar name, exogamy, the simplicity of marriage rite, and the part wine plays in the ceremony, uncleanliness after childbirth, purification ceremony, menstrual seclusion, and ceremonial ablutions. Beside Ashanti loanwords of apparent Hebrew origin, and this is from a book, Hebrewism of West Africa, written in 1930 by Joseph J. Williams. So just going into that, as an example. I read this too. It's still good. Page 22. In the first place, many Hebrewisms were discovered in the Ashanti tribal customs. Then several Ashanti words were found to have a striking resemblance to those of equivalent Hebrew meaning. Finally, the supreme being of the Ashanti gave a strong indication of the being Yahweh of the Old Testament. All right, so just adding that to it. It says, this is page 70, for they ascribe to the God of the attributes of omnipresence, omnipotence, and invisibility, besides which they believe that he governs all things by providence. By reason God is invisible, they say would be absurd to make any corporal representation of him, wherefore they have such magnitude of images of their idol gods, which they take to be subordinate deities to the supreme power. So just, Esau is even seeing the comparison of, the so-called Maroons, which we know was the tribe of Benjamin, their influence that's still in West Africa today.
If I could add to it, pretty much said Africa, but Africa that in the ancient world it wasn't known as Africa. That was the land of Ham. So essentially, again, the Lord put a difference between Ham and us. Because that was essentially their land.
Yep.
Which Egypt also was known as the land of Ham as well.
Mm-hmm. You got it out.
Can you have something, Yeshaya?
I think I'm gonna read a little bit more into this.
Okay.
And that'll be it. But it says, in Jamaica, music and dance and religious worship and rituals, and in food and dress. I guess that was it. Well, let me see. This is the legacy of Britain also lives on in Jamaica in many ways. For example, English is the official language. Her Majesty the Queen is the head of Jamaica's parliament. Doesn't make no damn sense. But it says Jamaica's system of government is based on the Westminster parliamentary model. Jamaica's jurisprudence is based on English common law and practice, and the game of cricket is a national sport. The Jamaican national motto, out of many, one people, reflects the fact that people of different races and creeds have lived side by side for centuries to forge a unique Jamaican identity and a common destiny as a nation.
And they pretty much following, that blueprint, that I mean, all of Esau, all of Esau's dominions, he do the same stuff.
Yeah.
King Antiochus Epiphanes, everybody should be one people. They do the same thing in America, Babylon the Great. That's why it's known as a conglomerate melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, bro, say anything else?
La.
Conway, Adonai Tazaza Banaya Apollo is with us, a beautiful edification through the spirit. Well, Adonai Tazaza Atam Yashlay Allah Tawab. Lord's will, you all have a good night. Well, we can go ahead and close it out by saying, Call Halayim La, Yahweh Bahasham, Kodash. Well, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us truth and rule well. And much respect to you, bros, out there pushing this truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom.
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 Allah Tawab.
Shalom.
Layla Tawab.